just tell you a little bit about myself. You know, I came to Nashville in 1978 to go to law school at Vanderbilt. And when I came to law school, you know, the big thing that happened to me in law school wasn't so much property law or securities law or whatever. It was that I met a woman in law school. I met a woman named Ann Davis, who is a Nashville native. And within my law school class, she's a whole lot smarter than me. And we fell in love, and we go through basically a 2-year period of discussing where we're going to live. And so I live in Nashville. And it turned out to be just a great place to live and raise a family here in Tennessee. I have a son who's married and has one child, my first grandchild, who was born over a year ago. I have 2 daughters who just graduated from college. And I have found Tennessee and Nashville to be just a great place to raise a family and to have a career. When I got out of law school, I joined the public defender's office as an assistant. And that work was really meaningful to me. I felt like I was helping people every day. I felt that it was important to make sure that people's rights were protected, that everybody got quality representation. But I also learned a lot. I learned a lot about drug addiction. I learned a lot about poverty. I learned a lot about alcoholism. And I really got, I think, a very firm understanding about the importance of education. That my clients were overwhelmingly 95, 96% high school dropouts. My juvenile clients were leaving school when they were 12 or 13 years old, and nobody did anything about it. And you knew that wasn't going to end well. Then I ran for public defender in 1990, was elected and re-elected in 94 and 98. And then in 99, Bill Purcell became the mayor of Nashville. And Bill and I had been assistants together back in the 80s, assistant public defenders. He likes to tell people we met in jail. But when Bill became mayor, he asked me to leave the public defender's office and become the city's lawyer, the director of law. And so I ran a law department of over 30 lawyers, which handled all the city's legal affairs. And that was a fascinating job. And then when Bill's 2 terms as mayor were coming to an end, I decided that I wanted to run for mayor. I had some ideas about how to move the city forward, and so I got into the race. And fortunately, it worked out, and I was elected mayor in September of '07, and took office in that month too. And I had really 2 very different terms as mayor. When I became mayor, the city was moving forward. There was good, steady growth. But about 8 months later, we go into the Great Recession. And so everything just kind of stopped, and we had to make some really tough decisions how we were going to manage the city. You know, clearly we had less money than we had before, and I had to make some tough decisions about what priorities were. I ran on the campaign where education, public safety, and economic development were, to me, the key things to keep to make the city a better place to live. And so I wasn't going to cut that, and I had to cut most other departments 15, 20%. To balance the budget, but that's what you have to do when you're in that position. We went through a major flood, but we continued to invest in our city. And as we invested in our city, by the end of my first term, a lot of things started happening. We built a new convention center that has worked out fantastically. We saw lots of new buildings in terms of businesses moving into the city, coming in, so the cranes started appearing around the city. The New York Times called us the It City. We got the TV show Nashville. No matter what you think about the show, if you're the mayor of Nashville and you have an ABC primetime show named Nashville, that is a good thing. And the city just took off, and so the boom began. And so during my second term, we were able to do a lot of things that I wanted to do during the first. We were able to increase starting teacher pay, moving it from 30th in the state to 3rd. We were able to put over $625 million into capital programs for schools. We were able to increase the school's operational budgets by about 37%. We were able to invest in open space and greenways and libraries and things that make the city a great place to live, and worked hard to bring jobs. We brought in, together as a team effort, as the private sector and public sector working together, but we brought in over 70,000 jobs. We also kept the Nashville Predators when they were about to move, and that's worked out pretty darn good, actually, for the city. When I think back to that time period when we were working with the Predators to keep them from moving, we were always so worried that they would never really hit their attendance marks. And now they just sell out every game. So it's been a tremendous success. When I left the mayor's office in 2015, I've been teaching, mostly teaching at Belmont University, political science, history, a little bit of law. And then I left that in January to devote myself full-time to the governor's race. And I'm running for governor because I'm convinced the people of Tennessee want a moderate, common sense, get it done, pragmatic person as their governor. They want somebody who has executive experience. I don't believe the state wants an extremist or someone who is going to look at ideology as being extreme positions as being the answer for our problems. They want concrete progress on things that matter to the people of Tennessee and what will make their lives better. So for me, that number one is education. That's something I've been passionate about for a long time. I think education is the key to the future of Tennessee. Number one, if we get education right, we're going to get better jobs. We're going to keep great jobs here. Number two, I think if we have quality education, we're going to be a safer state. My experience as public defender underscores that. That if people get a good education, they're going to work, they're going to thrive, and that's what we want. And we're going to be a healthier state when people understand the importance of taking care of themselves. But most importantly, we're going to have the ability to let our kids and our grandkids live their dreams, let them reach their full potential, and that's absolutely critical. We need to do a couple of things. We need to look at disparities around the state in education funding to make sure that all parts of the state, rural or urban or suburban, are able to provide a good education to everyone. We need to look at paying our teachers more. I can tell you from my travels across the state that when I talk to school superintendents, school officials, if you're in Memphis, you hear about the science and math programs, the STEM programs, and they'll say their biggest challenge is keeping teachers from going into the private sector because the pay is that much better. You go to more rural, small town districts, and they'll say, we finally get a really great teacher for science, and then another district in Tennessee will offer $10,000 more and they're gone. Or if you go down in the southeastern portion of the state, and they'll say, we get a great teacher, and then Georgia will offer more money, and we lose them to Georgia. We need, I think everyone agrees in terms of education that the magic happens when you have a great teacher in the classroom. Somebody who is getting kids excited about learning, somebody who's getting the job done. And to have those people, you gotta recruit the best and you gotta keep the best, and you gotta pay people. And I think that's absolutely essential. I think we need to spend more time and energy and resources on vocational education. I do think Tennessee should be a state that produces more college graduates. I think that's a great thing. But a lot of young people will choose not to go to college. And if they don't go to college, you want them to have access to good vocational technical programs where they can get a good career and make a living that can support a family. I think that's absolutely essential, and that needs to be a priority for us. I'm a big believer, as you know from my time as mayor, is you need a strong private sector creating jobs, creating opportunities. And what we need to do is really put our attention on those parts of the state that are hurting. There can be no forgotten Tennesseans. There can be no forgotten communities. If places aren't seeing any growth, some places lost jobs in the 80s and 90s. The garment industry virtually left our state. There were jobs lost in the last recession. We've got to make sure that we're using our economic development skills at the statewide level to help the communities that need the help the most. That to me is absolutely essential. We need to be investing a lot more and a lot faster in rural broadband. When you think about broadband, it's like talking about electricity from the 20s and the 30s. It is so essential to economic prosperity and to education. Someone growing up without access to a computer, and not good access to a computer, is starting off with an arm tied behind their back. It's important also to healthcare. A lot of the healthcare solutions we're hearing about, telemedicine or internet medicine. I mean, that's great, but it all depends upon having the technology to make that real, and broadband is essential for that. It's also essential for communities in terms of emergency warnings and safety. So that's something I would make a high priority and work very, very hard on. And then another issue that I think is vitally important is healthcare. You know, I think the biggest mistake our legislature ever made in my time watching it was not doing the Medicaid expansion. You know, we turned down, and we have lost about $4 billion, more than $4 billion, in money that could have been used to help people have access to insurance, people with low incomes, people with disabilities, people with pre-existing conditions. And that money that we're turning down, part of that is money that our own tax dollars is paying for, and that money's being spent in other states. And so as a result of that, we have seen Tennesseans not have access to health care. And even more damaging, we've also seen hospitals close. You know, in Tennessee, 10 hospitals have closed, largely in rural and small town areas. And these closures, what that does to a community, you know, usually the hospital is one of the largest employer in the community. The hospital helps you recruit people to come and live in your community. It helps you recruit business. And then you think about it on a human level. You know, if you have a heart attack, or you have appendicitis, or your child breaks her leg playing soccer, you're 45 minutes away from a hospital. And we need to make sure that we're working to make healthcare accessible for all Tennesseans, because it's part of all Tennesseans succeeding. And again, we can't leave anybody behind. We can have no forgotten people. There are other issues that concern me. I think we need to be, you know, very much concerned about maintaining clean air and clean water, and we need to be looking out for preserving the natural beauty of the state. And I don't think, you know, it's something we did when I was mayor. We worked hard on it. We did a lot with parks and greenways and open space. At the same time, Nashville was taking off and going through the ceiling. Taking care of looking out for the environment, looking out for the future of our state is not inconsistent with being pro-job and pro-economy. In fact, they're linked. People want to live in Tennessee because of beautiful places like this. And if we diminish that, we're not only hurting generations to come, but we're diminishing our chances of being economically successful. That's important to me. You know, the campaign is going very well. As I say, we've been to 95 counties. We've been working very, very hard in terms of meeting voters. We're on TV statewide, been there for 10 or 11 days. I don't know how long. I hope you find the ads edifying or interesting in any event, but we're trying to be positive. You know, I think Tennessee's best days are still to come. This is a great state. We got so much going for it. Our central position, our generally good weather, our strong fiscal management the state has had historically. We are a state that has a lot going for us, but we need to make sure we take care of the basics: education, jobs, healthcare. Those things are absolutely essential. There are a lot of polls out there. Vanderbilt, who's kind of a neutral party in all this, came out with a poll last week, not a horse race poll, but the part of the poll I found most interesting, it had me right in the middle of things with all the leading Republicans, is that amongst independents, I had the highest favorability, 60%, and that's key to this election. That's going to be key to this election. So I feel very good about where we are. I feel great when I'm in a room of Democrats who care about their communities and care about their state, and I'm confident that we can be successful. That is certainly my plan. I've enjoyed getting around the state, but I think there's so much work we need to do, and I look forward to doing it. And we need to do it together. I mean, I think one of the things we got to remember: this is a democracy. You know, this is an election. But when all is said and done, we work together, we look for solutions together, and we try to solve problems together, and we move our state forward, and that means everybody in the state, we move forward. And that's what I want to do. Thank you all for being here.